One of the final things that we need to do now is add our cascading style sheet code to our document. So I'm going to go into Dreamweaver, and I'm just picking up where I left off, and I'm getting into my FATS folder. Under it is an index.html. That's the file that I was working on. If I go into design view, it looks like this so far. And I want to change some things, such as maybe the size of this H1 and this H2, and possibly the size and the color and the font family, the font style for all of this paragraph and any of the others in my document. And I want to change the background color as well. So let's see how we can do that. Since this is an H1, and by the way, you can see that you've got this little tag selector down here, body div 01 H1. We haven't talked about that yet, but it's here for you. Look at how you can use it to select. Or if you make a selection in the body of your document, you can see that it is going to select that element down in the tag selector at the bottom. Alright, now I don't need to select that tag, I just want to show you that that's there. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start building my cascading style sheet code. Alright, and here's where I put it. Here's the closing head tag on line 6. So just before the closing head tag, I insert some space, and I start off with the style tag, and I say type, text CSS, and I need one more thing, which is media and screen. And basically all this does is says this is a style to come. What kind of style? Is it JavaScript? No, it's text, and it's cascading style sheet code, and this is intended for to be the code that changes the way that my page is viewed on screen. That's what media screen equals. If I open a style tag, I make sure I close it. Now, one more thing that's customary to put in here is a comment. And the reason is that if you have CSS turned off in your browser, it will just look at all of this code as a comment. Right. Now the first thing that I want to change is the way that the text looks for the entire document. So I'm going to use the body tag as a selector, and I'm going to change the font family. And this is another great reason to use Dreamweaver, because you don't get a list like this if you're just using a text editor. I'm going to choose font family, Verdana, Geneva Sans Serif. Let me tell you what this is. Your browser, if you put this code in, like you see here, choosing Verdana, Geneva Sans Serif, will look first for Verdana. In the case that your system, your computer, doesn't have Verdana font, it will then default to look for Geneva. And if it can't find that, it will look for any sans serif font that it has by default. So that's what that is. Make sure you put your little semicolon at the end to close the line out. And now I'm going to close my rule here with a closing bracket. So there it is. And I can go pop into design view and see how it looks. Now you'll notice that all of the font in my page is no longer that default Times New Roman. It's Verdana, which is a sans serif font, meaning a font without feet, without those little points. So I'm going to go back up to the top of my document, into the style code section, and I'm going to change the way this H1 looks. I don't like it quite that big, so we can change that. And this is experimentation. I expect you just to play with this and get the results that you want. I'm going to use the H1 as a selector, and I'm going to do a font size property, and how about 24 pixels, and make sure that you close it. And you can look in design view and you can see the results of that. That's much more attractive to me. Now if that's an H1, this FATS down here is an H2, You can see that with the tag selector. And I want to make it even smaller than the H1. So let's go do that now. I'll go back up here to where my styles are, and I'll select the H2 and set up a property value pair for it. Font size. And let's make it 20 pixels. Just for kicks to see how it looks. Decent. Now, if you wanted to, you can make the H1 red. Let's do that. Or dark red. By the way, notice that there are some keywords here, like dark red. Okay, that would show you dark red. Or, let's go down here into my H2 code. See, here's my H2 on line 15. And just add another property here, color. Here's another way that you can select colors. Click on this little color palette. And look, you get a palette. And you could choose it like this. Maybe I don't want it to be that dark of a red. That'll work. So see what that does. Now, maybe I don't want this font in the paragraph to be quite so big. I can change it. But I'm going to do that at the division level. In other words, I'm going to select this entire division. Okay, I'm going to use it as a selector, and then I'm going to change the way font looks within it. Okay, now if I have that division selected, I can see that it's called div pound div 01. The pound div 01, that means you can literally read the pound sign as ID. ID div 01. And just to show you what that looks like in the code again, you have a division and you've given it an ID div 01. So we'll use that as a selector now. And we're going to change all of the font within it. So where I have an ID, that's what the pound means, div 01, I want to change the font size to something smaller. How about a 10 pixel font? Okay, and maybe that's too small. Don't worry, just go back up here and change it. Maybe 12 pixel. Okay, so change your font until it is the way that you want it to look. By the way, here's an HR. I'm going to go ahead and change that. You know, we're going to experiment here. So what if you want to change an HR? You could use it as a selector, and let's see if the color property works on it. And maybe I want it to be this bright red. Is this an ugly page? Yes, it is. But it's just for demonstration. Now notice that didn't work. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. We'll get that to work. But it's not going to be with this color. So here's the point of that. Don't be afraid to experiment a little bit and see what works and what doesn't. And as we go along, we'll kind of understand why it did or did not work. And I can leave it or take it out. If my code is ineffective, it'd be better that I took it out. Alright. Now notice the text down here in this division did not change. So if I wanted it to be the same size, I could do one of two things. I could add a new rule for div 02, that's the name of that second division, and then my text would certainly change. See, these are the same now. Or I could have just not even created these rules here, and for the body selector I could have just initially changed all of my font size on the page to be 12 pixel. And this should work for me because here's the deal. I'm specifying this rule here, and then I'm specifically calling out the H1s to look a different way. Let's see how that works. So the H1s, their code stays intact, their rules are intact. But now the rest of the text on my page has changed to that 12 pixel font. And I like doing it this way because I don't have to go into each specific division and make sure that I've done it right to change the font size. So that's a little more efficient. What are some other things we need? Let's look at the example again. Border. Let's do a border and a border color for this division here. So this is div 02. So go back into the code, up here to the cascading style sheet code. Now see where I have an ID, div 02. I want a border, and I want it to be 1 pixel solid red. And close it. And it's just that easy. Now let's say I had a div 03 and a div 04 and a div 05. Look at what I could do. Comma, where I have an ID div 03. Comma, pound, div 04. See how you can use a group selector here? It just means select these things and they're separated by a comma, and then change them to all have a border, 1 pixel solid red border. Pretty cool. Okay, what else did we need? That's about it. Now, background color. Let's do that. Background color, if you wanted to change it for the entire page, background, I would do it on the body tag, background color. And I would go choose the color from here. I'm going to choose this light green. And hit design, and you can see that it's updated. Alright, so that's how to do your cascading style sheet code. Let's see if there's anything else that we need. Don't forget to add your Xhtml 1.0 logo. Where can I get that? It's at validator.w3.org. I know you can't see the address, but you should know it by now. And on this page here, if I go to help in FAQ and just scroll down the page, I want to make sure that I copy all of this code. And I place it in its own division down here at the bottom. Make sure it's in a division, div, and I'm going to call it ID div X HTML logo. Make sure I close this correctly and close my division. And there it is. So those are all the parts that you need.